welcome back to the High Ground Podcast. I am excited today because we are going to be diving into Rogue One. Um, I have an interesting relationship with this movie, and I can't wait because I have some awesome guests on. We're gonna get some nuggets. Also, it's the best time to have this episode since we had some major news drop yesterday. So we will also get into that right here on the High Ground. Hello and welcome, my beautiful guests. How is everyone doing?
Well,
Great.
Awesome. Yes, I am excited to talk to all of you guys about Rogue One. Like I said in the beginning, I have an interesting relationship with this movie because when I first saw it, it was my least favorite Star Wars project ever. It's a weird way to intro. I know, but and it will remain this way until this is actually my second time around the horn with all the Star Wars films. And after the last High Ground, it moved up several places. And then I can't wait to get everyone else's perspective, rewatch it, and sit with it and see how I feel. So, come celebration next week, I might be a new man. You might see me in all Rogue One gear. You don't know.
You will see me in all Rogue One gear.
Yeah.
uh, Well, let's start by going around. We'll have you say, who you are, where you can find your amazing content, and we know this movie has a rough ending, but they did what they needed to do. My question is, what Star Wars hill are you willing to die on? So come up with a good one. Also, anyone in the chat, um, let me bring this up. So yeah, everyone in the chat, if you have a Star Wars hill you are willing to die on, go ahead and throw that in there as well. I'll start with mine so that you guys can get an idea of kind of what I'm thinking. The Star Wars hill I am willing to die on is that it's just so weird when people blame the Jedi for Anakin's fall more than they blame Anakin or Sidious, the literal Sith Lord who was pushing him towards the dark side since he was 8 years old. If you bring up Mace Windu before you bring up them, that's just super weird to me. I will die on that hill all day, every day. Um, yeah, I'll go to Dave first.
so I am Xanatos1138 on pretty much everywhere, primarily TikTok. Star Wars Hill, I'm willing to. There's so many, but I would say keeping it topical. Solo is a pretty underrated film, and Alden deserves more chances to be Han.
Nice. All right, I approve this message. How about you, Chase?
So yeah, you can find me on all social media at Forward Into the Black. You can also find me monthly with David on the Rogue Council podcast, where we just did an episode on Rogue One, where I think we're a movie behind on you, or no, movie ahead on you right now, Chaco. But my Star Wars hot take, and please don't kick me off of this podcast after I say it. Star Wars has actively made Darth Vader a worse villain as the story has progressed.
All right. Well, everyone say thank you for Chase. Anyways, no, I definitely get to see. I see what you. I mean, because that's what happens when you find out the backstory of
Yep.
anyone. He just this.
Anakin is such a cool character and such an interesting story that it detracts from the original Darth Vader every time they dig deeper.
Mhm.
I think it's a great story, but I'm always like, I liked it when Darth Vader was just Darth Vader.
No, I agree, and I think I never really put it into thought like that. But that's why I'm like, please use him very sparingly. Like, please don't overdo it. Please, keep it light. But yeah, how about you, Stardust M?
I'm Emily, or Stardust M. You can find me on TikTok at Stardust M, and then on Twitter and Instagram at _. Stardust M. To keep, I guess, things relevant to this podcast, my Star Wars hill that I'm willing to die on is I don't know how to phrase it exactly. I guess that I think that the hallway scene at the end of Rogue One shouldn't have been added. So
I get in trouble for sharing a very similar opinion. It feels like in Inglorious Bastards when you're watching like the propaganda film and you're like, this is weird. Like it feels like Vader propaganda in the middle of a Rebel movie. And
yeah. It's like all these people just died, but let's have this cool scene of Vader killing a bunch of more people.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. Let's see what we got there. Oh, everyone's saying. I was gonna say if Stardust M isn't on the panel for tonight, I expected Emily to be in this. Yeah. We have. I think that Luke and R2 is a better duo than Anakin and R2. Personally, I agree, but I think that's probably because of my relationship with the expanded universe. Because I've read so much Luke and R2 over the years. Jyn Erso can solo the entire roster of Star Wars characters.
That's so true. The only one she's evenly matched with is Kira.
Yeah. I feel like the reason Anakin turned was not Sith or Jedi, but he lost hope to his expectations as a young child, trying to change his origins and bring good, leaving him no choice in mind. I do agree, I do feel like he had all of what he thought were his choices being closed off until he could only see one way forward. So I can kind of get that. And we have the beach ending would have been so beautiful if it was just that and nothing else. That would be the most depressing ending ever. If it just fades to white and then
I like the Leia scene. I think the Leia scene. You keep that.
So cold. Kanan and Ezra are the truest representation of the Jedi in all of Star Wars. All right, I like that. Not sure I'm not there at that point yet, but I do love them. Can't wait to see them come back. Hopefully they are going to come back. Yeah, all right. So jumping into it, first and foremost, we got news. We got lots of news. So I want to get quick hits around from everyone. I'm going to change the order. So I will say a show that we got news on. And then everyone will just go around really quick and give your thoughts on what we got. Oh, and I do have to share. Cal's, my personal hill to die on is my hatred of Anakin. He is the spoiled kid who ruined his own life. Obi-Wan experienced much of the same and didn't fall to darkness. I wouldn't call him spoiled, but he definitely, I've kind of talked about how I feel like my own sister is Anakin, who is just immensely talented in everything, effortlessly, while I'm like grinding like an idiot trying to get to like a decent level at stuff, and then letting all of that go to their own darkness. That is upsetting to me. But all right, we'll start with the one we have the most information on right now. Obi-Wan. What do you think about any of the Obi-Wan details we got?
I've been avoiding it personally. I just want to watch the show at this point.
All right. Any other thoughts?
I've been most focused on like Hayden's happiness whenever he's doing like the interviews and stuff. Like I'm so happy that he's happy to be back.
Yeah. How about you, Em?
I'm excited for Reva. I thought it was really cool, those pictures of her and Vader, and I think she's gonna be a cool character. I'm excited because I haven't ever really had an Inquisitor that I'm like that's the one for me. So.
Same. She looks, and the way she always talks about the character in all the interviews of like, yeah, she doesn't care about anyone or anything. Like she's just gonna be tearing people up, and you're like, all right, that sounds badass. I want to see that.
Just let women be evil.
we support women's wrongs here. And then also, I in that interview, it talked about how they grappled with the thought of whether or not they should bring Vader back into the mix. Ultimately, I'm happy that Hayden is getting to come back and kind of flex his dark side once again. That makes me happy. All right. Any thoughts for Mando? I feel like Chase is just avoiding everything.
To an extent, yeah. I am. I'll just say this: years ago, there was a video game I was very excited for, and I got overhyped for it, and it almost ruined the video game for me. So I have since then, like, not let hype get to me, and I'm just like, great, a new season of The Mandalorian. Okay. I am very aware that Baby Yoda is the biggest cash cow for Disney right now. So Baby Yoda is invincible. And that's where I know the show is going right now. That's about it.
In the article, it brought up that was actually a little bit of a fight between Favreau and Filoni to make Baby Yoda happen. But if David, you have any thoughts on it?
I've mostly seen, like, all over my feed and all over, I've just seen like the interviews with Hayden and Ewan. I haven't seen a whole lot else on that.
Yeah, I'm excited. I like Mando. I'm excited for Mando. It's just so far away that it's like hard to like.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, I'm pretty confident I'm just gonna like it anyway.
Yeah, I'm excited to see more of Din on Mandalore. Hoping we see more Bo-Katan.
All right. Well, let's do because I want to dedicate some special time to Andor. So how about all of the rest of the announcements, and then we'll do Andor after that. So like we got a brief hit of the Acolyte confirming it's going to be 100 years before the Phantom Menace, and explaining how the galaxy got, specifically the Sith, got into that position. The Ahsoka story I thought was really adorable about she gets the part and she gets in the costume and FaceTimes her friend whose son loves Star Wars, and he couldn't handle it. I love that. Any thoughts for for any of the announcements that came out besides Andor?
I'm excited for the Patty Jenkins and Taika movies. I know they announced those a while back, but I'm excited to see what Taika does with the Star Wars project, because I feel like he has a really unique style, and I think that he could bring some really interesting characters and dynamics to the story. I don't know. I guess we don't have like any information on what it's set, but I'm excited for that. And yeah, Patty Jenkins, I like what she did with Wonder Woman. So, and I think X-Wing pilot story is fun, and I hope Wedge is in it. I like Wedge and Toys. I know he was in the Legends Rogue Squadron.
Yeah, we stand Wedge here.
Yeah, I'm just excited that Rogue Squadron is officially not canceled, so everyone in my comment section can shut up now.
I think that was my favorite part, is just seeing that all this stuff is still very much on the plate, because we just didn't know. David, any thoughts?
I am excited to see what Taika brings to Star Wars, because I feel like that's right within his wheelhouse, and it's going to be something that's like funny but also a fun ride type of film. Or yeah
my pitch is that Taika needs to do a heist movie, and Hondo Ohnaka needs to be involved in the heist, and they will be breaking into Maz's castle, and I want Maz to have some like secret hidden vault under the castle. They're trying to figure out how to do it, and they're just bringing in all these different people that some we know, some we don't, and yeah, Ocean's 11. Only the hotel is Maz's castle.
I feel like if there's one director who could bring Afra into live action really well, it would be Taika.
Yes, that's pure chaos. That'd be so much chaos. I love it. And that could introduce us to the Codebreaker if we did something like that. Yeah, that'd be interesting. All right, last but not least, Andor. This is a Rogue One panel, so I know you guys might have some thoughts on news. The first news we've ever gotten for Andor. What do you guys think? David?
Well, I'm excited for any news of Andor. I'm happy it's still going, and I saw with a couple things. I saw Diego Luna talking about like how when he first got into Star Wars, he had to like talk in code words in the car. And my favorite picture I think from there is seeing Mon Mothma, like not in the traditional white and that hairdo, but she actually looks like badass in that frame. I thought that was cool.
Yeah. What were you gonna say, Chase?
Yeah, I was gonna say like basically what they were kind of like hinting at what like the story of Cassian Andor before Rogue One was exactly kind of what I was expecting it to be, which is a great thing. It's not like, oh, it's predictable. Like yes, there should be a like reluctant hero. Like, I don't know if I want to do this or I'm going to get thrown into this in a weird way. And I'm like, yes, this is exactly what I want to see because Cassian's such a great character.
Yeah, absolutely. Your thoughts, Em?
Yeah, I was happy initially because it was what I've been saying that I wanted for months, which is for this story to continue the foil between Cassian and Jyn. The description of rebel-averse, I think they say like nihilistic, kind of a mess, it all felt like a description of Jyn at the beginning of Rogue One. And I like a lot what that does for their characters, why that means that Cassian can have complicated feelings towards Jyn because she is what he was, and that is not maybe the reflection that he wants to see. I was interested in learning that it's going to start with the destruction of his homeworld, which I think that's really interesting, and I thought that also then added good motivation for him in Rogue One, because now him trying to destroy a planet killer is
a lot
a personal thing. It was personal, like it was for Jyn and Sheridan, Baze, and Bodhi, and I love that. And yeah, and I'm excited that they said Mon Mothma her story was basically going to run parallel to his. Once again, I like that because I like the dynamic that Mon Mothma and Cassian can have a dynamic or a relationship that is similar to Jyn and Saw, and this like kind of you are a rebel leader and you're trying to help this like younger person, how do you handle them? Clearly, Mon Mothma, if their relationship is close, did a better job than Saw did. So I like that. I'm excited. Yeah, I'm excited to see what they do. Also, Diego saying it was a migrant story. I felt like that was really great and like the perfect way to tie like current politics to Star Wars, and also works really well for, I think, as a companion story to Rebels, when we're talking about people who have lost their homeworlds to the Empire. That brings us back to like Zeb and Lothal, and I think that's also an important part of the show to kind of tie that specific part of like Star Wars together with a kind of overarching theme. Sorry, I talked a lot.
No, I appreciate it. I appreciate it. Well, I hit some background music really quick. That was louder than I thought it was going to be. No, I absolutely. I mean, I agree with everything you guys said. I love that specifically we're going to get Mon Mothma's story running parallel because we don't know much about her, but hopefully this can bring in some of the stuff that we missed out on from Padme in the past. We have some of that with the beginning stages of running this rebellion. And also, I love the book, Rebel Rising by Beth Revis. But I would love to see the exact opposite. I assume that Mon Mothma probably has a little bit of a gentler touch raising someone than but also having getting context to I've been in this fight since I was 6 years old is really cool. And seeing him kind of get pushed into the corner until we have to fight back is awesome. I'm looking forward to that. Oh, and DePaul's in the house. Thank you so much for the $5 ramen drop. We really appreciate it. We will be having that ramen very soon. All right, and I'm excited, mostly because Chris has never had ramen in any form in his entire life.
So wild.
Ooh.
What?
Not even instant. Yeah. I just joke around that means that he was never poor. But all right, let's jump into the movie itself. I love hearing people's thoughts, the things that jump out at them. My first time watching it, there was a lot of stuff that I missed, a lot of the subtle nuances, and going back into it and seeing what you guys all saw and appreciated, like, really means the world to me. So, yeah, I want to start with the first act. This is also interesting, dividing this up into 3 acts, because the first 2 acts are the first half of the movie. But all right, so we kind of have the opening all the way until the destruction of Jedha, where they leave Saw behind. Yeah, what really jumps out at you guys about this beginning portion?
I think there's a lot to unpack in the beginning of this movie. I think the way they introduce all of these characters, from Jyn, Galen, Cassian, Bodhi, K2, Chirrut, and Baze, like, all of it, they're all introduced in such interesting and cool ways. I think we like jump locations very quickly, but we all see these really amazing locations. And the fact that opening is like not a ship, it looks like a really pixelated ship, but it's actually the rings of a planet, and seeing like the rings cast on the shadow of the planet. And then the rings of Kafrane, like just the city in an asteroid is like stuff we've never seen in Star Wars, but makes total sense in Star Wars. And just like it's a very fast paced but very filled first act. I love it. There's a lot to talk about.
No, I mean, you can keep going. You can bring up more than one point, or we can always come back. But I mean, for me, seeing Cassian like take out that very first guy, it's like, holy crap. What were you gonna say, David?
I was just gonna add to that. That was a hell of an introduction for Cassian, because you kind of see, okay, he's a rebel. Oh, he just killed a guy. So it kind of paints the rebels as not like the clear-cut good guys in this scenario. And then in the beginning, when Krennic is introduced, I'm not sure when he solidified as like one of my favorite bad guys, but like that line in the beginning when he sees Lyra running back, he goes, "Oh, look, Lyra's back from the dead. It's a miracle." It's like, I want to see Ben Mendelsohn in every single thing he does from now on.
He was just such a dick.
Krennic is my favorite villain in Star Wars because I hate him so much.
Yes.
He's the worst.
I saw somebody being like, Krennic deserved like better, and I was like, look, I love Krennic as a villain. That man got exactly what was coming to him.
Exactly what he got was what he deserved.
Oh man, I especially that the little bits of him that you see in in the third Thrawn book and Treason, he's so aggravating of a human, and you're like, he's the guy who's climbing the corporate ladder no matter what. And he doesn't truly know what he's doing, but he's gonna get there. Like, he is represents the incompetence of the Empire while still being effective as a manager. You know what I mean? Like, he can't do it, but he can manage or torture people until they do it. I don't know.
He's like the embodiment of middle management in a
Mhm.
corporation. And it's so frustrating to watch. Like, God, he's awful. I love him. He's the worst.
When we get introduced to Jyn, I say this all the time because going into it, I knew her name was Jyn Erso, and they call her Lyanna Halleck. But when the movie starts, you don't know that. And so a guy just walked, he's like, Lyanna Halleck! Lyanna Halleck! And I was like, the hell's he saying? Is that Shreewook? Like, what does he want? So every now and then I just yell Lyanna Halleck because it tickles me. I don't know. How about any other parts or Em, what jumped out at you in the beginning?
I mean, yeah, like you're saying, I think Cassian's intro is always one that really jumps out at me. I think especially because, like, I think he's basically the only hero where he kills someone basically unprovoked. I think it's like him and Han are the two, at least in the movies, that I can think of that like basically kill anyone unprovoked and aren't like assumed to be the bad guy. Like when Callus like just throws that stormtrooper off a wall. And then, but I think it's interesting, and I always really love that. And then Jyn's intro always really gets to me now, from everything from with her mother to Saw picking her up. I think the furthest I've gotten into this movie before I started crying was Saw saying, "Come, child, we have a long ride ahead of us."
Yeah,
you just think of everything from Rebel Rising. I always like the really small details that this movie puts in, especially to Jyn's character. In the first scene of the film, she's wearing a braid, and Lyra is also wearing a braid, but then for the rest of the film, she's only seen wearing a bun, and in Rebel Rising, she's also only describes her hair as being in a bun. And it's sad when you realize that Lyra did it for her, and then she never learned, and no one ever taught her. And so she just kind of had to like let that piece of herself go, or like, her dropping Stormy, her stormtrooper doll. Like, it's these pieces of her having to like let go of her childhood before she's ready and before she expected to. Another part that I really loved that is Bodhi and Saw's first meeting. I feel like that's such an underrated part. Both Forrest Whitaker and Riz Ahmed do a fantastic job playing those two characters, and lies, deception,
every day more lies.
Bumbling, like, oh my god, please, I'm so scared and I'm just trying to help. Like, really well. It plays off of like Forrest just like dead. I am too old for this shit.
Well, I mean, Saw specifically, to me, when you see him and see how much he's changed since like the Clone Wars, and he's more machine than man now. Like, you see him becoming the thing that he's fighting, and it's when he breathes from the little thing, and you're like, those are just really cool details. I like how Liba One brings out the "Are you here to kill me?" Yeah. I maintain I could have done without Borg Gullet.
That's yes, but
will. Yeah, go ahead, David.
No, I was gonna say that line when he said, like, it always hits me when he says, "There's not much of me left." I'm like, ooh, true, but that could also, like, he could mean physical and mental. There's a lot, and I also agree about Borg Gullet. I don't like Borg Gullet at all.
I maintain that's why he talks like that. He spent too much time with Borg Gullet.
Look, okay, here's Borg Gullet defense crew here. I'll say two things. Borg Gullet is like the expanded universe brought to life. Like literally. Borg Gullet is like everyone who's like, oh, they decanonize the expanded universe, blah blah blah. Like, no, look at the Borg Gullet. Like that is literally something out of one of those '90s Star Wars comics. Like that's what that is. And also, the Partisans did nothing wrong ever, not once.
I am a Sagarra defender, so I'm
Not once had Saw or the Partisans done a whoopsie. Everything was right, and they're perfect.
Yeah, running to that party with flechettes was troublesome. Borg Gullet is amazing.
That's my one with Saw, but I think Borg Gullet, I mean, it could be. I've always interpreted it as like a manifestation kind of Saw's paranoia and distrust that even as Bodhi is trying to help him, and given the kind of character we see Bodhi as, there's no reason to distrust him. There's no reason why Saw can't just listen to the message, but he's so paranoid and distrusting at this point because of so many years of fighting that he has to use this weird monster creature to like torture people and break their minds so he knows that they're not lying to him.
Yeah. And also I agree with Comic Binge. Keep Star Wars weird. I don't maybe I've watched too much anime.
I mean, there's like Star Wars weird, like in Solo when they have half heads, and then there's Borg Gullet. I mean, there's kind of a weird separation there. But I actually, Borg Gullet was okay until he says one tends to lose one mind, and then Bodhi's kind of okay afterwards. It's like, I don't know.
You know, I literally watched this an hour ago. Again. He is different from when he's introduced to this, like, I'm here to see Saw Gerrera. I'm gonna do this. He's quick paced. His cadence is very fast. And then after Borg Gullet, everything with Bodhi does slow down. I think there is like, at least as far as acting go, there is a shift pre and post Borg Gullet. So I will give the character that. It is not like this, like, oh, he's just totally crazy now. But yeah, I noticed that because that always bothered me too. But I did notice watching it again. I was like, he's changed. And it's not like a drastic change, but he's definitely changing the way he talks, the way he moves, the way he communicates.
Yeah, and in the cell, he's so like despondent at first to Cassian, like he's not processing what he's saying. Cassian's having to like repeat himself, like, "Are you the pilot? I'm the pilot." And it's like that's like the moment where he comes back. So I think it was like, I mean, you could just take that as Bodhi is strong-willed, that he was strong enough-willed to leave the Empire to come and do this. He was strong-willed enough to survive Borg Gullet, which was supposedly supposed to break his mind.
Galen chosen for a reason, so
yeah,
I like that.
Okay, and more Bodhi love. We need more Bodhi love just in general. You know, he's a solid dude. All right, so we have the destruction of Jedha. We see the first test of the Death Star, single reactor, and damn, it was just a really cool scene. I do always feel weird that they kind of left Saw there. Like, I felt like he could have made it, but I think he was also like, I'm done. just let me die.
The fact that Saw's final act is to save Jyn, his daughter, breaks my heart. How he thinks in the novelization that he's like, she's kind of the last of his family, and like I think it's a representation of their like complicated relationship. Like, yes, he's saving Jyn because she now is the only person that has the message. She is the only one who can destroy the Death Star, who can finish out what his life's work has been about. But also, like, that's his kid. He doesn't want his kid to die with him on Jedha. He wants her. He doesn't want her to be like a martyr. Like, I mean, I guess like he was, and like Steela kind of was. That scene, and the fact that Jyn asked him, she wants him to come with him even after all those years of being so angry with him. And, you know, also like the fact that like she just doesn't really get time to process that. She certainly didn't say everything she wanted to say to him. She just kind of has to like, and she just doesn't have time. She just has to leave, the one person who was her family. And yeah. It always gets me when he just like, he throws his breather down and just kind of like stands. Why?
Yeah. I also really, I see like a parallel with this scene and the end of Return of the Jedi of what does he do if he goes back? If he goes back to the Alliance, he's not one of them. They will never accept him. They view that his actions can't be redeemed. That's why he's not a part of them anymore. And I think it's funny because they do go to those extremes in the next movie. And it's just one of the things of it's like, we have Luke saying to Vader, it's like, come back, you come back. It's like, what are you going to do? You're going to bring me, Darth Vader, back to the Rebel Alliance, back to the New Republic. What do you think's going to happen? And then Saul has the same thing is like, you want me to go back to the Rebel Alliance. What do you think they will do to me if let me do anything at all? He's like, my people are here. I am here. Why I'm not leaving. So I do love him staying.
Yeah. I agree with that. Like I think about like the sequels if Rey brought Kylo Ren back and what the reaction on like Poe's face would be like,
hey guys, I brought my boyfriend back.
Didn't he kill like a lot of us? I remember him tearing apart my brain. Can I veto this? I don't know. All right, we jump into the second act. So we now have the crew together, and we get the message. We get them to go on the mission to find Galen, and she still very much has a problem with her dad because basically everyone has abandoned Jyn at this point. I even feel bad about how Lyra was like, I'm just gonna... But knowing Krennic, I would like, listen, I'm going to shoot him. I'm probably going to die, but it's worth it. Like that's a trade. But yeah, second act, what do you guys like?
I would say maybe it is the bridge between the first and second act, but I think the message is so important to this movie. Galen's message to Jyn and the hologram with Saw, and there's a lot to unpack in that message alone, but I think I will just say Felicity Jones's performance in that scene is like the greatest acting Star Wars has ever seen. I think just her facial expressions and just her watching that hologram is just like, I don't know if they had Mads Mikkelsen there in the room when that was done, but man, it gets to me every time when that message is played and just watching Jyn just like collapse after it falls.
Yeah, that's always really, I've seen some people almost like criticize Jyn they're like, oh well, she just like doesn't like respond, or like she doesn't show emotion, like that Felicity isn't acting. But I'm like, no, that's intentional. Like it's the intentional choice that Jyn is trying to appear uncaring. She's trying to appear like nothing is affecting her because so much of her life has, and so she just has gotten used to bearing her emotions. And that message with her father, the conversation with Saw, is like that flip where like we see I think she in the novelization describes it as like basically like a hatch in her mind, and it's now been broken open, and just every feeling that she's ever had towards her father and Saw is like coming back and coming in that message. Yeah, and her acting in that scene is so fantastic, and just the slow build of like tears in her eyes. And
yeah, I mean, if you think about it, she hasn't had to be herself in years, hasn't had to unpack any of that stuff, and then all of it just shakes loose. I know.
Yeah, just keep bursting out.
Jyn's introduction, our introduction to Jyn as an adult is she's being rescued by the rebellion.
Leona Alec!
She gets her hands freed, and her first thing is like, I'm going to kick this dude into the wall and run. Like that's who she is now. And so just like, yeah, you're right. I haven't read the novelization, but that's exactly right. This is for Jyn, and it's like it's this movie it's one of my favorite movies, but it's so hard to watch sometimes.
And it's especially because you can like see her becoming more invested and more impassioned, all leading up to like I think her fight with Cassian, and then the speech to the Alliance, where she's talking to Bodhi, and Bodhi's saying how her father sent him, and he wanted to get his heart right, and she's becoming more impassioned and telling Cassian like we need to tell them about this message, and all of that. Like you can see her kind of returning to her rebellion roots, her strategy roots.
Yeah. What do you guys think of I mean, now the line is escaping me. I was trying to figure it out, but what Chirrut says, and, the darkness surrounds someone with the intent to kill, or something like that, something similar.
Yeah.
Everything.
He look at Miller? He has a friend.
Mm-hmm.
Man, that line gave me chills. I mean, Chirrut is my favorite character in the film. I think he just
everything Chirrut says is golden. Mm-hmm. There's not one thing he says in this movie that I think is a throwaway line or doesn't have some impact. And even when he's being goofy, it's just like he's perfect.
Like I don't need luck, I have you. Oh, there we understand like the couple of lines Chirrut and Baze have. We understand their entire dynamic.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me? I'm blind.
You almost shot me. I saved you.
Well, that's the line. The Force moves darkly around those who are about to kill. And
interesting. I think a way to incorporate the Force in this movie too, to not have a Jedi, but someone who kind of believes in the Force in a different way and even seems to use it in a different way than the Jedi. And I just think that's so cool.
Yeah. We'll get to it in the third act, but there is a line that Chirrut says about Baze when he says, Baze used to be one of the most devoted guardians of all time. And I'd never tied it together with the end of the movie. And when you tie it together, it is like the waterworks come 10 times harder.
Well, I always think it's so interesting because basically, like, in a way, like Chirrut and Baze are a mirror to Jyn and Cassian, and like you have one person who used to be super devoted to a cause, who used to be very invested, but because of what the Empire has taken from them and continues to take from them, they've lost their hope. And then you have one who is a firm believer who continues to fight and continues to persevere despite all that has been taken from them and continues to be taken from them. And Chirrut and Baze are this kind of perfect representation of trust, and trust going both ways, while Jyn and Cassian, at least like they're keeping secrets from each other at first, they have to build to that sort of perfect trust.
Yeah. And so what do you guys think of the scene where Galen actually passes away?
Man, it's tough because it's tough, I think, in just the context of the movie. But I think after reading Catalyst, that scene is a lot harder because you do have a stronger connection to Galen when you read Catalyst. And it's one of those, and I think the last line, or the last thing that Galen says is, "I have so much to tell you," to Jyn, and then he just falls limp. And I think this is another example of like Jyn is such an emotionally complex character because she's this character that, again, when we see her, she's kicking people, she's running, she's shooting people precisely, she's beating the crap out of stormtroopers left and right, and she can and Cassian literally has to pry her off of her father because she can't deal with it. And it's just like she's such an amazing character that's so complex. And I'll touch on it a little bit more later, but like the main crew of Rogue One is so interesting to me, and I think that they feel so real in a way, and I think Jyn feels like a real person, not a Star Wars character.
I think part of that, like, feeling real, especially with Jyn, and I would also say Cassian, is because they're so clearly given flaws. Like this, you know, we know that it's wrong for Jyn to say she doesn't want to be involved in the rebellion when she has all this skills and knowledge that she could be using to help. We know that it's wrong that Cassian is going along with trying to kill Galen, and that he, that he's flawed and he's willing to do bad things for the rebellion. I think that gives them a humanness that, yeah, is sometimes missing when you have, like, as much as I love these characters, but like Leia, who's like this like pristine, almost like representation of like hope and love, or like Padme, who's like this very like perfect queen, that then, these characters feel a little bit more like dirty.
A little more attainable.
Yeah.
Like, I can't be Padme, Yeah. Okay. I have to say though, like, just the movie making process, the set design, the locations that we got to visit during this were so beautiful. Like this movie does jump around locations a lot, but each one feels hyper designed, and that's one of the other things that you appreciate, because that does keep you sucked in and invested in the film. That's just from a filmmaking standpoint. That's one of the things I also really enjoyed. But yeah, let's move forward to the final act. Whew. There was a lot of stuff to unpack here, and including middle manager critic going to see his boss and being like, "Hey man, he's trying to like take my toys or whatever. Can you stop him?" Like, the middle manager skips his manager and like talks to the tries to talk to like the one of the directors of the company. That's what it feels like. And they're like, "Listen, man, I'm too busy for this stuff. Like, why are you here?"
I love "Don't choke on your aspirations" line.
Yes.
It's great. It's so good. I know, like, kind of what I said at the very beginning about Anakin and Darth Vader. That is Anakin Skywalker talking. That is not Darth Vader. That is Anakin Skywalker. And I do love it because it's like that straight out of the prequels and the Clone Wars right there.
If you need any proof that Anakin and Vader are the same person, it's that line.
That's the line.
He was grinning underneath the mask. Like, he doesn't ever smile. That's the only time he's ever smiled under the mask, was that line. He's like,
it's so funny.
That's good.
But yeah, what else jumps out at you guys for this ending of the movie? Because the ending is just epic.
Before we get to the Battle of Scarif, I think the meeting room on Yavin, and seeing characters that we've seen from the prequels, where we see in the original trilogy, seeing the guy with the white beard, who is the same actor from A New Hope, just and it's this feud within the Alliance, and then I think these little nuanced expressions you get from Bail and Mon Mothma of, it's just like they know what they have to do. They know Jyn is right and they know Cassian is right, but it's just like they're like, it's the Republic all over again. We will not win this way. And like the scene of Jyn going out and getting ready to figure out how they can get to Scarif, and then Cassian coming with the band of rebels, and they're just like, it's not a lot and we'll probably overstuff the shuttle, but we're gonna do this. And it's just like it's very much like, this is a rebellion, and it's like everything else feels like it's been a military, or it's just a new form of the Republic, and this is like, yeah, this is the rebellion. This is what we're used to.
Yeah, it's like in that scene when they're talking, it's like the Senate all over again, because they can't all come to a decision, so they can't Like they can't go through with what they want to do. But then Jyn rebels, and she's like the blueprint for the rebellion going forward, because then Leia takes that over from there to the original trilogy.
Yeah. And then so does Chaz and the Chaddock. But well,
posing. That's my thing.
But I love that as well, though, because yeah, she rebels as a rebel, but that's exactly what they need, because what evil needs is for good people to just stand by and do nothing. And even as well intentioned, it's almost also I take it as a personal lesson, because I have analysis paralysis for a lot of things, where I'm like, no, I'm not ready. This now is not the perfect time for me to do all this stuff. And you're like, this was the perfect time, and you gotta go. And seeing someone like Jyn go from being so despondent and hopeless and not believing in any cause, saying, what choice do we have? Yeah, that was pretty powerful.
Yeah, and I think the story is so well structured, because she would have never done this if she wouldn't have grown up with Saw Gerrera. Like, this is something he would do. This is something, this is what he taught her to do. It's like, it doesn't matter if you're on the right side or not. The right side isn't always going to be the best side, and if you want to go through with it, like, you got to do what's right. And like, it's just, it's that whole extremist rebellion coming through in her, and it sets the stage for everything moving forward. And like, she is, we brought it up before, like, she is the rebel. She is everything the rebellion stands for is her.
I've always thought that, like, in kind of that last act, Jyn is everything that is the best parts of all of her parents. So she is the exact, like, rebel leader that Saw raised her to be, that he wanted her to be. She is standing up despite the cost, despite the fact that she knows that, like, it probably will not end for her, just like Lyra did in her last moments. Like, even this, when she, like, straightens up when she's facing off against credits, it's very reminiscent of Lyra when she takes out the gun and she just faces him straight on. And of course, she's completing her father's revenge, what he worked to try to do his whole, or at least when he was taken back from the Empire. And I think that's really beautiful. And yeah, like, this isn't, like, Jyn is not possible without, Saw, without seeing what her mother did, without her father. And I love that, and I especially love that because I think in a story like Star Wars, where it's so focused on family and found family and just, like, family in general, and even bloodlines and what that means, having Jyn be the best of her blood is something that I think is really great and adds to that theme of why family is so central.
Yeah. And all of Star Wars. I have a question for you guys. Do you think that this movie is also about the Force trying to reach equilibrium, working through people? I mean, I think about one thing that George Lucas said early on, that people have a destiny, but they can choose whether or not to follow it. And everything in this film had to have happened perfectly to the hour for any of it to work. You know what I mean? Like, and that actually used to be one of my problems with the film, because I felt like a lot of things was like, okay, in order for this to work, we have to pull that random lever on the beach over there. And you're like, why is it there? And then, like, and I felt like there's a lot of, like, all right, now that lever that's precariously, like, hanging over, but
I think in that, and yeah, I think you're not wrong in that, but I think that is, I would say, classic Star Wars, but it's just fiction in general of it. Just like, it's like, yeah, I always joke of, it's like if you watch any fiction movie that has any sequence where there's any type of action, and it doesn't have to be a gunfight or a fist fight, just like stuff moving forward intensely, is it's like no one ever trips, no one ever like, you always land the perfect jump, or to break into the bank vault, right? You have to have this perfect machine that you somehow stored in this perfectly sized SUV that drove it to the bank, and no one detected that there was a blinking drill or whatever going on. That's fiction in general. It's it's always got to be that way. But I think you're right. I mean, in the universe of Star Wars, like, and I think having Chirrut and Baze there helps a lot. Yes, like the Force is guiding everything, and if we take what Chirrut said, is like, the Force moves darkly around someone who's about to kill. Like, I know it's a big metal ball, but imagine what the Force must be doing around the Death Star.
Yeah.
And it's just one of those things. Or how is the Force move? How does the Force move around someone like Tarkin or Krennic? How does the Force move around Hux? When he's getting ready to fire Starkiller Base.
Yeah.
Well, even I think it's in the comic, Chirrut said that Jyn is light. Like he's following Jyn because Jyn is light. So if it's moving forcefully, that is like the Force is quite literally guiding Chirrut to follow Jyn. And like I think there's a reason that Jyn has a Kyber crystal necklace that says trust in the Force. I think there's a reason why she was Lyra was then created to be such a big believer in the Force and in trusting in it, that like, yeah, this is like the Force is guiding Jyn to be where she needs to be, and to do what she needs to do.
And I feel like, and they did very, very specifically show when they were pinned down. A guy like peeked out an inch. It's kind of like me playing Apex Legends. I like look a corner and get a Kraber in the face. And that guy gets taken down, but then Chirrut is able to, at least the Force is protecting for a brief moment.
That scene, and when Jyn is clutching onto the Kyber crystal, are like the two scenes that stick out to me when you say about the Force influencing in that movie. Like those are the two, I think.
Yeah. Do you think there was a lot more Force centric plot that was changed in the film?
I had heard that Lyra was originally written to be a former Jedi, but that's the extent of it.
Which I think
I don't know about the behind the scenes, but I feel like with Rogue One and Solo, I feel that it was trying to very purposefully move away from that of having, yes, you have Chirrut who believes in the Force and moves with the Force, but is not a Jedi. Like and it is very much stated he is not a Jedi. Basis, he's just a dreamer. He's no Jedi. And in Solo, even less. Like you get the ignition of Maul's lightsaber. That is it. And I think that was done purposefully, and I think it sets it up perfectly. Kind of like even in The Mandalorian, is moving away from that. Yes, you get Grogu, but that story is very much about someone who has almost no connection to the Force, but the Force is always guiding someone like Din, someone like Jyn, someone like Han Solo, and someone like Cassian.
Yeah, I like that, and I always like that there are, except for like Chirrut, who I think might be Force sensitive, that like the story is so focused on at least non-Force sensitive Jedi characters, and the same I think with Solo, because I really like this focus of like, it's not just the Luke Skywalkers or the Kanan Jarruses or the Ezras who get to be the heroes, who get to help and save the rebellion. It's the regular people. It's, Cassian's just Cassian's some guy. Like that's like, it's not, he's a captain in the rebellion. He's some guy. Jyn Erso, like, I mean, yeah, she has connections to like, I mean, Saw and Galen, but like she's just some girl, she's just some kid.
Yeah.
Bodhi's just some cargo pilot that was brave enough to stand up. So I think it's all just like, you know,
Who
regular.
wasn't good enough to be a fighter pilot.
Yeah, like he didn't want to, like he couldn't do the test to even be a TIE fighter. So like this idea that like it is really about just like regular people can do stuff. You don't have to be some major player. You don't have to be super even skilled or you know smart to stand up and do what is right and do what is necessary.
And that's kind of like what I touched on earlier that like I'd love to like bring up now is the crew, the U-wing crew, right? The people who are on the U-wing going on this little adventure. The way they dress, the way they talk to each other, and the positions they have are so like boring in a way. And it's like you said, like Bodhi is a cargo pilot. Every time we hear about a pilot, it's a Poe Dameron, a Wedge Antilles, it's a Soren Keyes and Eric Well. They're these fantastic X-wing and TIE fighter pilots. Bodhi is a cargo pilot. He brings shipments from one station to the other. That's his job. His uniform is so uninteresting. You can barely tell it's an Imperial uniform. It's not the cool black TIE fighter pilot. It's not an Imperial officer uniform. And they're surrounded by these people that talk differently than they do. Like the argument in the U-wing when Jyn like, you know, kind of confronts Cassian about like, you went up there to kill my father. Like that feels like a real argument. And it's like they look like they're ready to go to blows over this. And everyone's just like really awkwardly pushing themselves up against the wall. Like even Baze is like, I'm gonna put myself on the cargo ramp a little bit further now. Whereas, you know, you have just like even just the cadence and grammar of someone like Mon Mothma talking, it's different from them. And it's always like the little people are the pieces that move everything around. You know, it's like Luke Skywalker, all he did was shoot a torpedo in the exhaust hole. That's all he really did at the end of the day. He wouldn't have done that if it wasn't for Jyn and Galen and Cassian. And I love that we get this whole thing there. And it just shows how different they are and how normal they are and how they accomplish so much.
When you're talking about outfits too, that's one thing that I always found so interesting is that every other female character, at least in the movies, has a very distinct look from their male counterpart. It's Leia in this pristine white dress. It's Padme and all her elaborate hair and makeup and dresses. It's even Rey, who's so distinct from like Finn and Poe in this like kind of linen and roby looking material versus like a leather jacket. Jyn and Cassian are wearing almost the same outfit in just different colors. It's this standard rebel look, and her hair is in a low bun with bangs that she clearly had to cut herself. It's not like this elaborate braids or hairstyles like the other like girls have. It's really I think it's meant to be almost a physical manifestation of her more masculine traits and her being one of the more masculine female leads that we have in the movies, but also really showing like she's just some regular person. She's she just is like trying to look normal, fit and be just some girl. She's not trying to be the leader of the rebellion. She's not trying to be the queen of Naboo. She's not trying to be the Jedi that is going to bring balance to the Force again.
Yeah. Even when they're on Jedha, they're like, oh yeah, we need to blend in. Like they don't really change.
No.
They like, and it's like they're all dressed. Like I think Baze and Chirrut are the exception of like their costumes and their appearance stand out. Like obviously Chirrut is wearing a flowing robe with this like tri-belt harness thing, and Baze has a giant can of energy bullets on his back. So he stands out a little bit compared to everyone else. But it's like if Jyn or Cassian were to have, you could probably point them out of like, oh yeah, they were walking, on Tatooine somewhere, and that would be like, oh yeah, no, that makes sense, But yeah, and I think that's so interesting how they kind of dressed the characters in this movie.
That's a big part of it as well. Real quick, I want to shout out Padawan's podcast to give a super chat. I appreciate it. Can't wait to see all these great people at Celebration. That's crazy. We're all gonna be
Yeah.
We're gonna see each other in a week.
Yeah, one day.
Yeah.
That's wild, man. I can't wait. It's gonna be a ton of fun. Okay, so I mean, continue. We have the battle of Scarif. I just want to make sure we're not missing anything. We get because like we haven't even talked about K2 at all. We haven't. Did you know that wasn't me? Like that's
Of course.
I'll Cassian said I had to. My K2 earrings, you can't really see them.
Oh yes, awesome.
I think
go ahead.
every time I see like when they introduce K2 when he like choke slams Jyn, every time my first thought is like, is her back okay? Because she looks like paralyzed for a second.
What's interesting though is as we're talking about how how all of the characters are made to look so normal. It's so interesting because K2 is probably the droid that is meant to like he's the most different from like a Star Wars droid. He's taller than all the rest of them. He has weirder proportions and he's not colorful. He's not a bright metallic. He doesn't have like the fun oranges or blues or greens that Chopper and BB-8 and R2 have. So I think that's really interesting how like in that way they tried to set like K2 apart from other Star Wars droids. I mean, he is like a reprogrammed Imperial droid, which is also really interesting because we don't see much of that. I guess we have AP5, but even AP5 just looks like C3PO, but like kind of gray. So I think that's interesting is like in the way that they tried to make all of the other characters look more normal, they made K2 look more abnormal.
I love K2. I think Alan Tudyk knocked it out of the park as K2. And I'll say we could definitely get into the Battle of Scarif, but one thing that I think is so sad at the end of the movie when we're losing all the characters, and I brought it up on the podcast that we did, is Cassian's reaction when he realizes that K2 was destroyed. That's his only friend. He has like been working with this crew and they're his team now, and he appreciates and cares and wants to keep them safe, of course. But K2 was his friend, and it's just like it's so heartbreaking to watch Cassian like get on the comm and be like K2, like you have to respond. Like it's like he's like I don't have anyone, and if I'm going to be stuck on this planet, and die on this planet, it has to be with you. You can't go yet. So he's just like you can see how sad he is, when he's going through that. Because we don't really see him be upset in this movie. We get him, you see him frustrated, you see him stressed, but you don't see him upset or sad. And you do see him very, very sad once he realizes K2 is gone.
In the novelization, K2's last thought is imagining Cassian surviving, and that makes him happy. And I think that's just a very perfect representation of their relationship and friendship. Like they were really.
Why are you trying to make me cry? That's rude.
They are
a Star Wars movie.
They are really all each other had. Like, I think it's clear that Cassian probably lost friends in the rebellion, and now he has K2, and K2 is a weird Imperial defector droid who says whatever pops into his circuits, and is that in that way makes, I imagine, it's kind of hard to like and maybe hard to work with, but it seems like Cassian appreciates it. Yeah, that's. I mean.
Yeah, I mean, even in Jedha, when K2, when we get the did you know that wasn't me? And then it's like Cassian's like, why? I thought I told you to stay on the ship, and K2's like, I got bored. Like more than I just got bored. He's like, I got bored, so I just wanted to come hang out with you some more.
If Cassian comes back, if they're not back when Cassian comes, we're leaving them.
Yeah.
He really does not care about anybody but Cassian.
Yeah, and he spent the entire movie giving like giving probability percentages, but then when Jyn gives him the blaster, he's like, your behavior is continuously unexpected. It was like the biggest compliment he could give her.
Yeah. The chances are she's gonna shoot you with that thing. High.
Very
It's
high.
very high.
I'll be there for you. Cassian said I had.
Whose death was the saddest?
Jyn and Cassian's. Well,
Baze.
Jyn and
Baze.
Cassian. Oh, Baze is up there. I was gonna say.
Baze, and because when you take into consideration that Chirrut says when they're on the U-wing, he says Baze was one of the most devoted guardians of the Wills, and it almost, if you don't remember that line, when as soon as Baze says, "I'm one with the Force with me," I immediately start crying. No matter how many times I see this, but then when I was like thinking like, oh yeah, here come the waterworks, and I was like, he always believed. He always believed in this, and it's just like it all. Once he loses Chirrut, he's like, it's all gonna come back, and this is it. It's like, this is all I have left. This is where it's gonna end. I will follow the Force. I've always followed the Force. I say I don't, and it's just like, oh my god, I hate that part of the movie. It's so rough.
When he's
I kind of
for Chirrut, come back to me, come back. Don't go. I just.
It's so.
He spent all this time trying to follow Chirrut and trying to protect him, and he just couldn't.
And it feels like all of the faith that he had in their order, he put into Chirrut instead, and then without that, he had nothing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they've taken everything from him. They took his home, they took his faith, and then they took the only person that he had in his life that was left. So if he's gonna go down, he's gonna go down fighting for what he believes, or I guess what he believes in, which at that point is Jyn. He believes that Jyn can.
When they're getting off the shuttle, and he says, "Good luck, little sister." It's like, oh.
I think it's what I said earlier. I think what Baze sees in Jyn is a lot of what he is himself. Is this bitterly angry person who has lost everything. But if she can believe and she can think that she can change and do this and succeed, then he is going to believe in her, and he is going to follow her, and he's going to fight for her, not for the rebellion, but for Jyn.
I feel like Rogue One walked so that Fallen Star could run. This is the first time they put us through the ringer like this, and I feel like they're like, well, we know we can, so shall we? So in the end, we have Krennic popping back up to handle business personally, and he's like, I don't even know who you are. That's just, my favorite part is because it just reminds me of what was it? Now big meme from Batman Beyond, where he's like, "You killed my father." Do you have any idea how little that? But yeah, Krennic shows up. How do you guys feel about their last showdown? And the rest of the film.
I love the showdown. I love Jyn standing up to Krennic of like at the end of the day, especially reading Catalyst, Krennic took literally everything from her. It's not so much the Empire that took it away; it was Krennic.
Mm-hmm.
Krennic took everything from Jyn. She watched her mother get gunned down by Krennic's troopers. He stole her father, and because of that, she had to go live with this extreme rebel cell and become part of this dude's like soldier gang. And it's all because of Krennic. It wasn't because she doesn't know who Moff Tarkin is. She doesn't know who Darth Vader or the Emperor is.
Even Krennic kills Saw basically because it's his Death Star. It's his project that blows up Jedha that kills Saw.
Yeah, And so like she loses her gun, which sucks, when the let's just give a shout out to the TIE Striker, the TIE Reaper, the U-Wing, and all the X-Wings going around, and she gets shot at by a TIE Striker, and I was like, oh yeah, this is great. But yeah, it's like she doesn't have a gun. What is she gonna do? And what Cassian? We think we don't see Cassian fall down a hole, but as we know, there's no fall damage in Star Wars, so he's fine.
Falling is negative fall damage. You could be cut in half, you fall, and that I think the fall makes you get better. If he didn't fall, Maul would have died.
Oh yeah, when he fell, the metal legs came on Naboo.
Also, so after Krennic gets taken down, and basically the mission's complete, Jyn's like, "Let me kick his body. Let me kick it." I ain't done. I
want to poop on him. Like that's all it is.
Let's see here. Ben Skywalker, The House that Can't Lie, 10 out of 10. Pre-villain death monologue from Krennic. You have to give it up to the villains, that monologue. Those are the best villains.
He's a dramatic ass bitch, and he's not gonna. I mean, that drama stays with him till he dies. With the one arm pull, dramatic. Stand up.
And that just goes to show you that the enemy of Star Wars was drama kids. All of them.
Oh yeah,
all of them. That's why we were so worried that Luke might turn. He was a drama kid who just didn't get to go to drama class. But it was inside him, from the start. But yeah, this whole scene, and then also. I'm sure you got feelings on this, Trace. The whole space battle that's taking place above. I mean, one of my favorite Star Wars things ever is just having the multiple storylines at the same time. Mm-hmm. All of them get stalled at the same time, and then slowly one breaks through, and then the other, and then the other.
I love their, the shot alone of the camera angle, like glued to the X-wing coming out of hyperspace into this huge battle is just oh my god. And then you see all this, and there's so many little Easter eggs that we get. The Ghost is in this battle. The Ghost and Chopper are on Yavin 4. So that's cool to see. But they use some of the old footage that was never used from the original Star Wars when they're doing the call-ins, Gold Leader reporting in, Red Leader reporting in. That's just old footage that they just kind of upscaled. And so that's great. And the shield generator is awesome. Watching those two X-Wings slam into the shield generator, you're just oh God, buddy, I'm sorry.
Hoyt.
I'm sorry. And seeing all of the U-Wing is one of my becoming one of my favorite ships in Star Wars. It's so cool. It looks like a F-14 Tomcat, just and the new ties that we see, but also them just shooting a ship into another ship into another ship. It's awesome when they get the KOTOR hammerhead that just shows up randomly, and it's just Radis I got an idea. It's so awesome. Just crashing it into, and just when the Star Destroyers go into the shield generator, and we don't hear a thing except for the score, and then we see the shield dissipate. It's it's just the art of war at work.
It always makes me think of just the scene on The Office where Dwight is whittling a knife, and Phyllis comes in and he's like, "What are you doing? Making a knife with another knife?" That's kind of. I have Acrylic Coffee Works in the chat. Krennic looking up at the Death Star would be the most satisfying scene if everyone else didn't unalive along with him.
It's probably the most poetic death.
Mm-hmm.
It's the most satisfying thing to watch in Star Wars. Watching Krennic just
look up. Just
boom headshot by the Death Star. Like you're like, yeah.
With
Kind of like when you said,
extreme prejudice.
everything's perfect. Like it's perfect. Like, the switch over there. That is the perfect shot. They missed the base, but hit Krennic in the way. Because Tarkin's like, hit the base. Oh, we missed the base. We vaporized Krennic and then hit the ocean. It's still gonna work out in there and what they wanted, but it's like, man, fuck you, Krennic.
The Empire there.
There had to be like a gunner with like an extreme zoom who's just like,
I
love this.
Sorry, I missed.
Gotta hate that guy. Oh man.
Just talking on the Death Star is like, so I shot my boss.
And love seeing the Mon Cala representation. You gotta love to see it. I love his ship with the glass, kind of bottom up. I don't know. I just think there was some just really, really cool design. But yeah, we finally come up to the Vader scene.
We have one more death to cover.
Oh, sorry. Yes.
Beach scene. That's what everyone does, Chaco.
Never get so hyped up over Vader.
Oh, no. I was letting you guys bring out what you wanted to bring out. Y'all didn't mention it.
Oh.
We stand here among
victim blaming.
Yeah, but yes, the final beach scene, which was beautiful. What do you guys think?
I think there's something very beautiful about Jyn Erso, who we kind of learn in the novelization, just kind of always assumed that she would, 1, die alone, and 2, die with no one knowing that she was Jyn Erso. Being able to not die alone, being able to die with a person who didn't leave her, the one person basically in her life who didn't leave her, despite seeing her at her worst and seeing her, and I mean, kind of being part of the reason that she was at her worst, but despite, seeing her at her worst, Cassian didn't leave her. I'm not used to people sticking around when things go bad. Welcome home.
Welcome home.
Cassian is her home, which is all she wanted in the end. She wanted someone she didn't want to be alone. And even that affirmation finally to say, your father would be proud of you is beautiful. And I also think, Cassian not having to die alone, when I think probably that was also something that he might have assumed, being a rebel, especially a spy, that, I'm undercover, whatever, but also that, and being able to die for the cause that he believes in, that he put so much of his adult life into, and knowing that he has made a difference. That's another, do you think anybody out there is listening? I do. Someone's out there. And then of course we see Leia saying that they brought her hope, is very beautiful. And yeah, and just that whole scene, them hugging, and I think the Scarif stuff was filmed really early on, because I know that Riz Ahmed said Bodhi's death scene was one of the first things he filmed. So honestly, the fact that they were able to do that so well so early on, pretty impressive.
That's funny. I didn't know that. I like knowing myself. If I was in that last scene, I know I would have said something stupid to bring levity to the moment, right before we died. And so, yeah, you don't want to be in the bunker with me. The last second before you hit, I'd be like, buttholes.
My sunglasses.
I think the beach ending, it's so impactful. It's so well shot. It's just, it's hard to process in a way of everything that's going on, because in a way I'm sure they're hoping that this is the last time it's ever fired, and we know that's not the case. But that's all they can go off is like, this is going to be the last one. That's all they can probably think of is like, this shot is the last. They watched Jedha go, and now they're watching. Scarif to them is just an Imperial installation, but it's going to take them out. And it's like, we sent the plans. It's never going to be fired again. The Alliance is going to take care of this. And I think just Scarif in general, it's so visceral, the ground section, and I think we do see a really good separation of Rebels versus Empire, because like when the Rebels go down, they check on each other. There's emotion. When one of their guys goes down, both the stormtroopers, it's another trooper. Just keep going, keep pushing. I think they did that whole. I think for an action scene, there's a lot of really good storytelling going on. It's not just pew pew boom boom. There is a lot of pew pew boom boom, which is great. But like, you see so much going on, you feel a lot of things happening, and the finale with the Death Star is just like, ugh. It like echoes to what Krennic says on Jedha. He's like, oh, it's beautiful. Like, you do see like this is kind of beautiful in a sad way.
Yeah, that shot of the Death Star coming over their horizon was actually a really beautiful shot for a death machine.
Yeah, or even that last with the like white against like Jyn and Cassian hugging. Like, I always think that's such a beautiful still. But yeah, it's so sad when you like think about what's actually happening.
I'm gonna say something I don't know, problematic in the Star Wars community. I think that Jyn and Cassian are probably the best example of hope in Star Wars. I think Luke gets stated as hope. I think Luke is more willpower than hope. He's more, I'm not going to fall down. But they were like, we know that doing this is going to make a difference. We believe that by carrying the torch as far as we could possibly go, someone else is going to pick it up and carry it forward. I think that's hope. Like,
I mean, Em, you brought it up, when they're in the elevator, and I think it's when they're in the elevator, but when Cassian says, do you think anyone's listening? You don't get, I hope so. Jyn says, I do. Like you're right. They are hope. It's not they're hopeful, but they are the hope,
I think that just almost shows too, like, what Jyn has learned from Cassian throughout it. Rebellions are built on hope. Cassian, despite all that he's had to do, despite all that he's had to go through, he still very sincerely believes in hope. And through him, Jyn can also believe in hope again, and can also provide that hope to him in his last moments to say, yes, someone's listening. You did what you needed to do. You were the rebel soldier that you wanted to be in this moment. Yeah, I completely agree. I think yeah, like, I know a lot of people say Luke, or I think Leia too is like, this representation of hope, but I do think that Jyn and Cassian maybe represent it even more.
Yeah. I've been reading a lot of Green Lantern, so hope versus will has been a topic that's on my mind a lot lately. All right. So then we have kind of the Vader scene, and I want to also wrap it up with. So we have the final scene where we get Leia saying hope, and we get the Tantive 4 taking off, which just makes the beginning of A New Hope hilarious. He was like, I just saw you. And she's like, nah, bro, I'm on a diplomatic mission. He's like, do you think I'm stupid? Like, God damn it. It's like, I don't know what you're talking about. Wasn't me. Must have been a different blockade runner. I don't know why we named it a blockade runner.
It's the SpongeBob episode where like, this wallet is yours. It says Patrick Star. Makes sense to me. So you're here with the rebellion. Not mine. I'm on a diplomatic mission.
So So yeah, we'll go around and we'll talk about that final scene, and then also we're getting Andor. Is there any other Rogue One related project that you guys would greenlight if you had the ability, or would rather move on, focus on newer stuff? I'm curious. And then also, if you want to, I'll go around one more time after that for closing thoughts and that stuff. But what do you think, Chase? You first.
I don't want, once we get Andor, I don't want any more Rogue One related content. I think it is such a good example of how to tell an encapsulated story. I can just speak for myself, and I know a lot of people agree, but I became so attached to the crew of the crew of Rogue One in a 2-hour movie. I didn't need a non-trilogy to appreciate those characters, and I do obviously like getting more, and that's why I'm excited for something like Andor and to tell the story of Cassian, before Rogue One. But yeah, I like the story where it is. I like where it starts, and I like where it ends. So no, I don't personally want any. I want to keep moving forward and getting more stories like Rogue One and getting more characters we can get attached to in the same way. But yeah, every time I watch this movie, I think this is the best Star Wars movie. I don't think it's my favorite. I think A New Hope will always be my favorite. And the Tantive 4 scene, I'll just say this. Does the Vader scene need to be in the movie? No. Is it awesome? Yes. So it can stay. Does his cape need to billow in space? No, but it's menacing, so it's fine. But I can tell you this, like, on top of like crying pretty much throughout this entire movie, when they turn on the lights in the Tantive 4, and you kind of like, I remember in the theater when this movie first came out, when they turn on the lights and it is that same white background of the Tantive 4, I was like, oh my god, I can't deal with this movie anymore. It is just like this nostalgic rush of like, this is how it all starts. Like, and it's like what we were all, I mean, myself for sure, and I know a lot of us, like, this is where we're introduced to Star Wars, is this ship started Star Wars for us. And just them turning on the lights at the end of the movie, and it's like, here it is. This is Star Wars now. I love it, and I think it is the best Star Wars movie. It's not my favorite. New Hope, I think, will always be my favorite, but it's the best movie.
Yeah, nice. And you, Em?
Okay. So I like the Vader scene. I feel like maybe I'm as a hater. I think it's a really cool Darth Vader scene. I think my issue is generally how it sometimes tends to overshadow what I think is the most important parts of the story, which is Jyn and Cassian's story and this message of hope and sacrifice and the rebellion, and not the cool Sith Lord does the cool murder. But it's fine. I love the Leia scene at the end, when she says hope, and like I said, I think that's a really fantastic lead into A New Hope. And I also think when you put it in the context of when the movie came out in 2016, it was right after, like, or it was like during, like when Carrie Fisher died. So having, that scene and knowing, I know it's not her and it's not Billy, but like knowing the context of that, it feels like such a sweet little like nod and send off to Carrie to have, see Leia in the original white dress with the hood and the buns saying, they brought us hope, and her story starting where we see it began. I love that so much. Yeah, and I'm a firm believer in Jyn and Leia would have been friends if they had gotten to meet. So I also love seeing Leia so close to Jyn. And then other Rogue One project, I'm kind of like Chase. I love that I was able to connect with these characters throughout this movie, but I have the opposite, where like I will take any content you want to give me. I don't think that I would want to do another TV show or movie. I think I more want to sit with comics or books. So I've said I would love to get a Bodhi comic or book, especially because he's the only character of the Rogue One crew who has not or will or like hasn't yet gotten his own like form of media. So I would love to see that, get some background on Bodhi in the Empire and him really going through the process of like deciding that he's going to defect and meeting Galen and having all of those feelings. I know Cheered Bays have a book, but it's like a junior one. I would love an adult book that explores basically them meeting as kids and through their years. Ideally, in my world, they're not going to do it, but it would be a romance novel. But that's not going to happen. And I don't know, for Andor, I am kind of hoping that like Obi-Wan, they'll kind of go all in, and I would love to get like a Cassian Andor young adult novel or a short comic run or something like that. Because I don't know how much time they're going to skip, but I'm assuming based on, what we've been told and following him through adulthood that we're going to skip maybe some of his teen years. But I would love to, get a short story similar maybe to Rebel Rising or maybe actually closer to something like Leia, Princess of Alderaan that covers a shorter period of time in Cassian's young adulthood. Just because I'll take any content, and I actually love the young adult Star Wars novels. I love DOJ for Cassian Andor young adult novel. That's all I'm saying. But yeah, I think I'd love it. I love Rebel Rising, but I don't know I think I would, if it was adapted, I would rather see it, which I don't think they will do, but like a dream would be an animated animation of that story in like a Galaxy of Adventure style animation. Just because I think that'd be fun. I would love to maybe, I don't know, but see just like the solo epilogue had like one kind of quick thing of Jyn and Saw on like a mission. Like if we got something like that in a project where it was just like, we see Saw Gerrera because, he'll pop up again. And he has like this kid with him. And it's Jyn. I think that would be fun. Not like a whole big thing, but it can be.
I did love getting little nods to Saw in this book inside of the Inferno Squadron book. That made me happy.
Yeah, it was good.
I would take a Star Wars Visions Saw and the Partisans with Jyn being a part of it anime like mini series. I would take that.
Yeah,
I like that.
Even just like I'm thinking like, just like an episode, like how Visions is kind of those like just one-off stories, like one-off that maybe goes through like one of the missions they were on. Like I'm thinking of the big, I don't know what it was called, but the big festival that they went to, where Saw kind of killed a bunch of people.
Yeah.
Hyper violent anime, but like like with Jyn and Saw doing like are the like, it makes you really question, are the Empire really the bad guys? Like
it's like Demon Slayer, but
like that's a 14-year-old. Why is that 14-year-old girl? I do love that they're like, Jyn was Saw's. He says she's the best soldier of Card. He's the most trusted soldier. That's a preteen girl. Were people just like, that's what do you mean? Like,
okay, but young people do amazing things in Star Wars, right? A little kid won the Boot to Eden Classic. Padme ran a planet. Like, I don't know. Children be built different there. That's
Jyn Erso killed 10,000 people in 20 minutes.
Like, I just can't help but think that some of the people that Saw introduced like Jyn to would probably like, that's like his most trusted soldier.
Meet my top lieutenant, Kyle, and it's like,
I like modals.
You're like
5-foot girl who looks like she weighs 90 pounds. You're like,
yeah, give her some truncheons though. She'll handle some business. How about you? Xanatos?
So as far as Rogue One content, I think Andor is going to be the last piece of visual media. Like I would love books, comic books, even like what M was saying, like short cartoons would be awesome. But I think Andor is going to be like the final piece of that era.
Mhm.
And as far as the Vader scene, yeah, I agree it probably wasn't needed, but I also flew out of my seat when I first saw it. Like I was going insane, and I actually forget what is headcanon versus what is like actually what happened. But like when they couldn't open the door, that was Vader using the Force to keep it shut. And then when he goes through them all and then he's out in space, it's like he's using the Force to make his cape flow because that's Anakin being extra. Like that is in my head every time.
I love it. It is very, very dramatic of a scene. I also love that they're running. I don't know how hard drives are, but like the thing that they're having, it's like just old school enough that it would fit into A New Hope, and it kind of makes me happy because like in my mind, it's like they're running with like a floppy disk, and then like I don't know, it just makes me chuckle.
I used to work on like when I was in Votech, I worked on old computers all the time, and I saw hard drives constantly on a daily basis. So when she puts in her bill, I was like, that's a real world hard drive she's holding.
Yeah. Running out data tapes, a Betamax.
No, it's like when they're like, "Oh no, it's a big file they have to submit." It's like, yeah, it's about 28 kilobytes.
Dude, I mean, I'm old enough to remember when my dad upgraded and was like, "Dang, this is a lot of space." We upgraded to 40 gigs, and we're like, "Oh, do you have any idea how many Word files you could put on that thing? Was Word even a thing?" I don't know. Windows 98 was around.
I think so.
Yeah, I remember the pre-gig days.
Yeah. Oh yeah, no, that was like super expensive and massive. Of like a who could ever use this, and like my phone wouldn't work. No.
It was John Carmack or Bill Gates that says like you'll never need more than 10 megabytes of hard drive space.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I wish.
And then for me, I wouldn't need any more. Actually, no. Here's what I want. I want an animated cartoon that's like, kind of simple, but I want it to be about K2SO, where like the first few things are like a cycle of a day in his life as an Imperial droid, and then something happens to him, and then he gets reprogrammed, and then he starts gaining agency and starting to think, and like starts gaining freedom. I think that would just be a really cool little nugget of a droid story. That's what I want.
Also, Em, I will totally go off with you. Not even just particularly Bodhi, but just a show about cargo pilots and really mundane jobs. Star Wars getting its own series, that would be my favorite thing ever. Like,
actually,
like a sitcom, just like a sitcom.
It's The Office, but it's just
like The Office.
We're working the low-level Empire job.
Like working a cargo pilot job. It's like, oh yeah,
data entry. Like,
okay. Have you seen the show Better Off Ted?
No.
Okay, I feel like a guy. He works in corporate America. Like the interludes between things are like the early 2000s commercials that businesses would have, where it's like eagles flying and it's like synergy, like Jabberwocky, and it says nothing ever. And he just works for this big faceless corporation. They don't know if they do good stuff or bad stuff. They put a mouth on a hamburger. It's weird. Anyways, that's what I would love, that where it's like people just working inside of this big machine who slowly get to realize how bad the machine is just over time.
And then Luke Skywalker comes and blows him up.
Yes.
Shane Crow. Shane is like, oh fuck, we're not doing so good.
Yeah, the final episode is they're like, we're all being transferred to the Death Star, and you're like, it's the opposite of Rogue One, actually.
Or
That's-
like if you just like I think what would be an interesting show would be to like have an office like The Office, and it's just oh Imperial, but like the big twist at the end of the season is they were on the Death Star the whole time.
yeah.
Like they don't ever mention they're like, oh yeah, it's another day going to the Death Star. It's just like you just see them at the office doing Imperial office work, and then it's just like they're having like a fire drill, and then it's just X-wings coming to the Death Star.
Because didn't like in Lost Stars, doesn't Thane like say it's like they have like a food court there and like shops?
Yeah.
It's like the cash register at the coffee shop on the Death Star.
You're a Death Star barista.
There's a great. I'm sure you guys seen it, but the Eddie Izzard bit of the Death Star cafeteria. That's so good.
I haven't
like-
seen it.
Oh, it's like guy going like Darth Vader going to the cafeteria. He's like, do you know who I am? It's like, no, I'm Darth Vader. I'm like, who?
There's
I'm
like
just
a
here to
billion
serve
people
food.
here.
I'll link it to you. It's hilarious.
In a way, we are just describing the undercover boss, Kylo Ren.
Yes.
They're all like in the cafeteria, like talking.
But I just found it's Kylo Ren's lightsaber.
Things look like it's, you don't have to look at it.
I heard that guy has like a 12-pack.
Like, Kylo's a punk bitch.
Well, awesome. I appreciate it. Thank you guys so much for coming out. This has been a lot of fun. Awesome conversation. Yeah, let's go around. I'll have you guys say where we can find you and your amazing content. If you have any closing thoughts, and we'll wrap it up. I'll go to David.
So first, I want to say thank you, Chaco, for having me on here. And I was when I heard about this, I was really excited to be able to talk to Emily about Rogue One because I see her content all the time. I love it. But you can find me, Xanatos1138, on TikTok, Twitter, pretty much everywhere there's social media.
Awesome. I appreciate it. And Chase?
Yeah, you can find me at Forward Into the Black on all the social media. You can find David and I on the Rogue Council, basically the second Sunday of every month, talking about a new Star Wars movie. And you can find me in 1 week at Star Wars Celebration.
Yes.
Yeah.
Find me at Disneyland dressed as a partisan resistance member.
A terrorist.
Yeah, literal terrorist walking into Disneyland.
You're Kato. That was one of the partisans' names, Kato.
Yeah.
And last but not least, Stardust M.
You can find me on TikTok at StardustM and on Instagram and Twitter at _StardustM. And as Chase said, at Star Wars Celebration in a week. I'm going to go on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. And I'm cosplaying Jyn one day, and then Han from Solo, and then Han 2 days in Solo. In final thought, stand the Star Wars standalone movies, and we should be making more Star Wars standalone movies. The fact that we switched to TV shows has upset me slightly.
Yeah.
My excitement for Rogue One will never be calmed.
Hopefully we'll be getting back into it. I know it was Bob Iger who really hammered down of like, no, we're going this direction. But the quote Rafiki, it is time. We need to get back in theaters. But yeah, once again, thank you guys for coming out. Everyone who's in chat, who's been hanging out, appreciate you so much. This is a lot of fun to make this content every week, and so I appreciate having all these people to talk Star Wars with. It's been awesome. So may the Force be with you, and